In this video, we will be learning how to use the reading scaffold or the reading scaffolding tool. And it looks like this. When you download the materials, you will get this page with the actual passage and then the 4 boxes. And then the outside, once it's folded, looks like this with the text, the story about kangaroos, right in here. This is a little bit hard to demonstrate on an iPad, but I think I can at least convey the idea. So again, this is the page as it's folded with the passage right in there and the picture of the kangaroo. And then once you open those doors, you will get these 4 empty boxes that we're going to fill in. And I encourage you to watch the assembly video if you have questions about how this piece should fold together. But the first thing I want to do is go back and start a table of contents. You know how important I believe this to be, and I think it helps students to stay organized. I think it also helps them to review. One of the main purposes of these notebooks is to allow students to constantly interact with the material. So page 1 is, of course, table of contents. Page 2 and page 3 are also table of contents. And I like to index every single page. You can skip this if you are so inclined. I won't make you sit and watch me do this. Let me just try to copy and paste it. GoodNotes is a very good app if you want to use this material to teach. I encourage you to try out GoodNotes, and of course it's going to act up on me. I'll come back and get that third one in a little while. But page 4 and 5 go together. These are going to be, page 5 is the input for main idea. And I'm going to go ahead and give at least a 1-word topic here. This is kangaroos. And then page 4 will be the output that's related to this skill. And I'll just put kangaroos practice. And that'll be a separate video, but it will already be filled in when we need it to be. And I will forget this, so let me go ahead and just write it in here. I do believe that this is worth doing. The table of contents, in my experience, was very helpful to students. But back over on page 4, and this will actually not go on page 4. So let me cut it and move it over to page 5. This is just the folded up version of this scaffolded piece. So once it's closed up, it will look like that. But all of that would be on page 5. And I always like to give the title. And the skill that we're looking at here is main idea. And I have chosen a passage about kangaroos to demonstrate this to you. So if you open these doors up, we can see that this one is reserved for keywords. The topic is under there. This is main idea. And then this is a summary of the passage in my own words. So I think going from from least difficult to most difficult probably goes this way and then back this way. So keywords will be the easiest and summary will be the hardest. So let's read the passage. Kangaroos are amazing animals that live in Australia. They have big, strong legs that help them hop quite far. Kangaroos are marsupials, which means they carry their babies in a pouch. When a baby kangaroo, called a joey, is born, it's very tiny and doesn't have fur yet. The joey stays safe and warm in its mother's pouch until it's big enough to hop around on its own. Kangaroos like to eat grass and plants, and they use their strong tails to balance while hopping. They are special animals that can jump high and far. So this is an informational passage about kangaroos. It really doesn't have any keywords in the passage, but for this type of informational passage, I like to teach students to use the question words. Who, what, when, where, why, let me put that here, and then how. Now, these don't make a lot of sense just as they're written here, but let's apply these questions to this passage. Does the passage talk about any people, any who's? It doesn't, so I'm just going to cross that out. There's no person mentioned in this passage. Does it talk about a what? Is it about something? And it is. It's about kangaroos. I am not concerned about how neat this looks. This is just a thinking exercise. It talks about kangaroos. That would be a word that I would want to notice. Not quite that much. Sorry. I actually taught my students to use certain colors for certain things. For example, people were always blue, places were always green, and that helped some students. I will have to say that it confused some as well, so use your own judgment there. The word marsupials, that is a what? And this is a word that a lot of people are not familiar with. A marsupial is an animal that does what? Carries their babies in a pouch. So a marsupial, this is, if I were doing vocabulary with this one, I would definitely use that as a vocabulary word. It also mentions a baby kangaroo, and that baby is called a joey. Does it talk about when? No, there's no date. This is not a time-specific passage, so I'll just take that one out. Does it mention a where? Did it talk about a place? And it does. It mentions Australia. I'll teach students to look for those capital letters that will help you identify places. So the place is Australia. Why? This one's a little tricky, but why are they called marsupials? That's a why. Why are they called marsupials? They carry babies, and those babies are called joeys in a pouch. And this is not like a pouch, a purse, or a backpack. This is a pouch on the kangaroo herself. So the mother kangaroos carry their babies in pouches. And notice it says mother's pouch. That leads me to conclude that the father kangaroos do not have pouches. There's another why in this sentence. This passage. There are actually two of them. Why do they have big, strong legs? What is it that the big, strong legs do for the kangaroos? Their legs allow them to hop quite far. And I'm not sure what these red things are. I think it thinks I'm misspelling words, but I'm going to have to get rid of that. I don't like that up there. I won't do it right now. But so the legs are strong. They use those legs for a very specific purpose. Another thing that could be a why do they need those big tails? If you look at this kangaroo, it has a very long tail, those very long muscular legs. The tail also serves a very good purpose. The tail helps them to balance. So those legs and tail sort of springboard that kangaroo forward, propel it forward. How do kangaroos survive? What do they live on? It tells me that they live on grass and plants. That would make them herbivores. They do not eat meat, so they are plant eaters. That would be another vocabulary word we could introduce. They're herbivores, or they're herbivorous. Okay, so we have a lot of information just by asking ourselves those basic questions. We don't have a who, we don't have a when, but we were able to get more information just by thinking through those basic terms. Now, we don't have to do anything else with that one. We've pulled some information out based on those questions. You could also highlight, if you wanted to, the strong tails to balance. The joey lives in the pouch. You could say a why here, so that the joey stays safe and warm in the pouch. Their legs, here we go. Big, strong legs that help them hop quite far. So those are some whys. And then I would also want to note about how they survive. They survive by eating grass and plants, so they're herbivores. Okay, for topic, I want to tell what this passage is about in 5 words or less, 5 words or fewer. So we know that this passage is about kangaroos. And in this particular case, that's enough if you wanted to use that. We could also say that this is an informational passage. So it's information about kangaroos. I think either of those would be okay. You could talk about the fact that with this preposition, if it's 5 or more letters, it gets capitalized in a title. Another thing that jumps out at me here is the difference between this word and this word. It's. Both of them are pronounced it's, but they're 2 different words. It's, it apostrophe s. You could even note that down here. If you have the apostrophe there, that means it is. The other it's shows possession. So you could talk about the difference between that contraction and the other it's. So what's the main idea of this passage? We know that it has to include kangaroos because that's our topic. So kangaroos are what? This says kangaroos are amazing animals. We can use that. This is an informational passage about kangaroos. This is leading me to expect information about kangaroos. So let's summarize. This is the tricky one. We have to take all of the stuff that we know and put it into a simple summary. It has to include the topic and the main idea. So why are kangaroos amazing? What makes them amazing? Or can we sum up this information in a sentence? So let's see. Kangaroos are Australian herbivores who or what or that. They're not people, so we wouldn't use who. I'm going to use that. Kangaroos are Australian herbivores that use their strong legs and tails to move around or to get around. Summary doesn't have to be one sentence, but I wouldn't go over two. We don't want to rewrite the whole passage. But there's something else that's very important about the kangaroo. It spent a lot of time talking about this. And it's the idea that they are marsupials. They even use that word. They are marsupials. So, what does that mean to be a marsupial? So, mothers carry babies, or you could say joeys, if you want to use that term, babies in pouches. Summaries are a restatement of what you've learned in your own words. So summaries allow you to express what you've learned in your own terms. They were always hard for me. The keywords were no problem for me. Topic, not bad at all. Main idea was a little bit harder for me, and summarizing was very hard for me. Just putting it in my own words without recopying. We can't just copy someone else's work. We have to put it in our own words. And it's a very, very important skill. So in the next clip, we'll use these things that we learned about kangaroos to answer some questions.